Hello, and welcome back to Learn My Heritage with me. I am your host, Mary Bennett, and this podcast is brought to you by the Hózhó Path Renewal. I'm a Diné woman who is reclaiming what was interrupted one step at a time. Because of assimilation and general disruption, there are many of us out there that are finding our way back to the teachings that weren't fully passed down. This podcast is my own personal reclamation, spoken out loud so that it will root deeper within me. These teachings that I share are all publicly available. I'm not sharing ceremony. I'm not speaking for all Diné people. I will be weaving in some Diné Bazad, which is the Navajo language. I didn't grow up with it, so it won't be perfect. And that's part of this journey. Jo'ogo nash do. I'm walking in beauty. And if you're reconnecting too, you're in the right space. Let's begin. Welcome back to Learn My Heritage with me. I'm your host, Mary Bennett. In the last episode, we talked about Sa'ąh Naaghéí Bik'eh Hózhóón and how often it is translated as walking in beauty, which naturally created another question for me. How do we actually walk it? As I've continued learning these teachings, I have noticed that there is a common theme. The answers aren't usually grand. They're not complicated, and they're often found in the smallest things that we could easily and have overlooked. And this teaching is no different. The answer to how we walk in beauty begins in something so small. You could hold it between your fingers. It is pollen. Now, I've always known that pollen is sacred, so that part wasn't new to me. But what was new is me beginning to understand why. Because sometimes we can know something our entire lives and respect it our entire life and still spend years discovering deeper meaning. And that's what this journey has been for me. Not replacing what I knew, but adding depth to it. And every teaching feels like another layer being uncovered. And Tádídíín has become one of those teachings. The more I learn, the more that I realize it isn't just a part of ceremony, but it does represent life itself. And the more that I learned, the more that I realized that that's exactly the point. Some of the greatest teachings are found in the simplest things. Like I said, I've always known that pollen was sacred. I knew it belonged in prayer. I knew it was used in ceremony, but I didn't know what it truly meant. I didn't understand the depth of why Tádídíín was so important. And as I've continued learning, I realize it's not just simply about pollen. It's about life itself. And that changes the way that I look at it. We're taught that pollen isn't limited to flowers. Everything carries pollen. Plants, birds, animals, humans is carried in the wind. It flows in the water. It exists throughout our creation. It exists within us. And because pollen exists, we exist. Pollen is actually one of life's foundations. Without pollen, there'd be no seeds. Without seeds, no plants, no animals, no humans. Everything begins there. And how beautiful is that? The smallest thing becomes the beginning of everything. One of the teachings that we will explore more deeply in future podcasts is the journey through our different worlds. Right now, we're living in what is often described as the third world, the yellow world. And one of the teachings say that the world is covered in pollen. So just imagine seeing it the world that way. Imagine every mountain, every tree, every stream, every sunrise, every person you meet, covered in something that represents life. So instead of seeing an ordinary world, you begin seeing a living world, a sacred world, a connected world. And that's one of the biggest gifts that these teachings are giving me. They're changing how I've seen things that I've looked at my entire life. Another part of these teachings that stayed with me is hearing the Corn Pollen Way described as the center path, the beauty way, the prayer path. Not because it's easy, not because we'll never wander, because it continuously invites us back. And I love that, because none of us walk perfectly. I know I certainly don't. There are days when I am impatient, days when my fear gets louder, days when life feels heavy. But Hózhó doesn't ask us to pretend that those days don't exist. It just simply reminds us, come back to center, come back to gratitude, come back to balance, and come back to prayer every single day. The next part of the teachings resonated with me. Prayer has been described as our umbilical cord to the holy people. And that's a beautiful metaphor because before we're born, our umbilical cord nourishes us, gives us life. It connects us. Without it, we wouldn't survive. And to think of prayer in the same way, not simply asking for something, but as remaining connected and more about relationship, less about needing something, more about remembering where we came from, where life comes from. So what does that look like in my life today? I do not carry pollen with me every day, but maybe I can carry what it represents: gratitude, humility, respect, kindness, connection. And maybe every morning before I look at my phone, before I rush into work, before distraction begins, I can pause and take a breath. Remember who created me. Remember that I am connected. And remember that life itself is sacred. And maybe that's one way that I begin to walk Tádídíín K'eh Atiin, the Corn Pollen Way. And one thing that I'm taking with me is that the pollen isn't just about the plants, it's about life. It's about remembering that every breath, every sunrise, every relationship is a part of something sacred. And maybe the beauty way begins simply by remembering that. And I think that's what this entire podcast has become. It's become a remembering, not simply learning history, not collecting information, but remembering. Remembering who we are, remembering where we came from, remembering that we belong. So Tádídíín and prayer. One of the ways that pollen is used is during prayer. As I've learned this from publicly shared teachings, pollen may be placed at the top of your head, touched to your tongue, and offered towards the east as a part of prayer and gratitude. Rather than seeing corn pollen as a ceremonial object, I get to see that it is a reminder of life, a reminder of gratitude, a reminder to stay connected. And if today's conversation meant something to you, I invite you to continue walking in the journey with me. Be sure to subscribe to Learn My Heritage with me on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Every episode is a step in my own journey reclaiming the Diné teachings, and I hope that they encourage you to reconnect with your own story, your own heritage, or simply to see the world through a different lens. If you'd like to continue beyond the podcast, I invite you to join the Hózhó Path Renewal Foundation newsletter. It's where I will be sharing upcoming episodes, reflections from my own journey, community events, and opportunities to continue learning together. The Hózhó Path Renewal exists to bring awareness into action through education, advocacy, healing, and community. And if you would like to support our mission, your donations help us continue creating free educational resources like this podcast, while also supporting initiatives like We Run for Them, our annual awareness run on Thanksgiving for missing and murdered Indigenous women and people. Whether you support by sharing this episode, attending an event, volunteering, donating, or simply by having a conversation with someone about what you've learned today, you become a part of a ripple. And sometimes that's how real change begins. The theme of this episode is to tell you that the small things matter. So make a ripple. One person, one conversation, one remembered teaching. Thank you for walking beside me. And until next time, walk in beauty. Thank you for being here with me today and walking this path, this journey. If this resonates with you, please leave a comment and share your thoughts. I hope that you continue to walk this journey with me. Make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe to make sure that you stay in tune with all the latest episodes. And if you feel called, share this with someone who is also reconnecting to themselves and to their roots. J'ogo nash a do. I walk in beauty. I'll see you next episode.